evening, St. Pete. That was nice. Thank you all for being here to help inform us on how best to spend the American Rescue Plan funds on the things you care most about. I want to thank our city leaders and facilitators, and I also want to thank President Biden and Congress for providing this relief to cities and through cities to our citizens. Now, our world really changed in March of 2020, and it has been a challenge for us, for you, and for our economy. And while COVID continues to impact our quality of life, and we continue to battle it, we are simultaneously also needing to recover from its effects. And as a side note, if you have not been vaccinated yet, please get vaccinated. I think the statistic is like 99.5% of those who are dying are people who have been unvaccinated. Please get vaccinated. Infrastructure, housing affordability and support, health and social equity, economic recovery, resilience, public health and safety all need attention in St. Pete and may all benefit from these American Rescue Plan funds. Now, you will be hearing opening statements and presentations outlining the current situation for each area of impact by our subject matter experts, followed by breakout sessions where you will rank the areas for funding prioritization. And please keep in mind, while we have always taken feedback related to our annual budget, this is not that. This is a special cause and not something we've really ever done before. And I've always said we would try new things, and that's exactly what we are doing. So your patience is much appreciated. And your participation, your voice is vital here. We are leaning on you to help us allocate these dollars in a responsible way and to help ensure a better and brighter future for St. Pete. Again, I want to thank you all for coming tonight and for your participation. And please, if you have friends or family who weren't able to come tonight or tomorrow or Wednesday, they can still provide us with their ranking by visiting the city's website. So please encourage them to do so. We want to hear from as many citizens of St. Pete as is possible. All right, so let's go ahead and roll the video, if you would, please.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you. I guess the good part is over, the movie's over with. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking about economic development and development in our city. And what I want to do is start with some of the recent investments that we've made in the city with the mayor and the deputy mayor and the council approving various programs and initiatives. So I want to just kind of talk about those so that you have that context for tonight. You kind of know what we've done. I'm going to talk about the projects that are coming and then talk about potential projects, just to get you thinking about what might fit best for your thinking and what the city may need going forward. So the first thing I want to do is just really talk about two things with economic development. It's about investing in people and programs that allow for greater commerce in our city and places, the development of places, making them better, making the environment more conducive to economic growth and job creation. So I want to start with the Fighting Chance Fund because it really puts in context where we've come from in the last year. Going through the pandemic, the mayor and the deputy mayor really said, look, we need to make sure that our local small businesses can get through this year, giving them a fighting chance. So we spent about $6.2 million awarding grants to local businesses to get through this tough time. The South St. Pete CRA, that is a program that we have in this part of town where taxes that are generated, tax growth that's generated goes into a special pot of money, and millions of dollars worth of grants are reinvested in this community, both for people and places and businesses. We move forward with the disparity study to see if we can do special programs for minority-based companies, and that will be moving forward with a discussion very soon to council. We changed our name. We're no longer just the Economic Development Department. We made it the Economic and Workforce Development Department because it's not just about bringing businesses, but it's about increasing individual skill sets to take those jobs of either companies that are expanding in St. Pete or moving to St. Pete. So we have invested a lot of money in workforce development. Transportation, that was all about mobility. You know that we have a ferry, goes back and forth to Tampa. Bike share was implemented recently, and scooters were implemented. And that's about moving people, giving people more mobility, not just with cars, but other options as well. And many of you know that we've worked very hard on complete streets. Streets are not just for cars, but streets are for people, bikers, and therefore complete streets. And we've been working on that across the city. Places, we've spent an enormous amount of time as a community on the pier. And how many people have gone to the pier? Excellent. Okay, a lot of people. Hopefully you're enjoying the pier. That is an example of placemaking for people that everybody can enjoy. Price points are not too high, too low at all. You know, it gives people from all backgrounds the ability to enjoy the pier. The old police station and the D'Annunzio project, those were about creating more workforce development on city-owned parcels and creating more office space. The Manhattan Casino was redeveloped. 4 museums were invested in, and the Skyway Marina has a new life for sure. The next slide talks about some of our budgeted projects that are on the horizon, that are coming soon in terms of economic development. The Grow Smarter plan is our business development plan. We've been working on focusing on 5 industries to grow those industries, and we have. They've created a tremendous amount of jobs over the last 8 years, higher incomes for people, and our poverty rate has decreased. So our business development strategy also includes the greenhouse, which is just focused on small business, local small business, and it's a collaborative with the Chamber of Commerce, and that's all we do all day long at the greenhouse. The Retention and Resiliency Program is really an extension of the Fighting Chance Fund, and I want everybody to know that those funds are going to be coming out soon. Those are again funds to help local small businesses, events that suffered during the pandemic, art organizations. So again, it's kind of a way for us to, the first one was Fighting Chance, the second one was, okay, let's keep this going. We came out of the pandemic, you know, everybody kind of suffered through that for sure, but that's what the Fighting Chance was. And now it's about sustaining our businesses and making sure that they have even a better chance to survive in the future. I want to mention a couple of place creating projects, and they're streetscape projects. One of them is on 22nd Street South. That will begin soon. We've worked hard on that over the years, and there's millions of dollars that will be going to improving that streetscape.
Alan, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And then the Innovation District, same thing. See, Allison, we've got a streetscape project that we're working on there. The BRT, that's going to be a big addition to our mobility. That's the Bus Rapid Transit Project, which will be on First and First from the beach to downtown. The goal is to make it easier for people to access jobs. And then back to, on the people side, we've got a couple of projects that are moving forward. Tropicana Field, we've done a big planning initiative there. The mayor is now down to 2 development teams related to that. A lot of community benefits are going to come from that. A lot of positive things for surrounding neighborhoods. The 2050 plan, you've probably heard about that. We're down to the nitty-gritty now. We're going to be making some of the proposals and recommendations we're going to put before the council for consideration and before the community for consideration. So that you're going to want to look for. And then Sankofa. Sankofa is a project that's going to take place close in this neighborhood, and very unique project, very unique. And then lastly, I'll just hit quickly on the potential projects. I know I'm running out of time. Tangerine Plaza, Tropicana Field redevelopment, Municipal Service Center, neighborhood commercial districts. We've always got programs and plans going in those communities. Complete Streets will continue. Our neighborhood traffic calming will continue. Transit shelter expansion, our workforce development programs, our targeted local small business support, and our Deuces Rising initiative, which takes in all of 22nd Street South. Thank you. Oh. And now let me introduce Cassidy Mutnansky. She told me that several times and I still botched it. Cassidy?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm not quite as tall as that. So as you mentioned, my name's Cassidy Mutnansky. I'm the Health and All Policies Planner for the city, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about what we could do in regards to health and social equity. So first I'm going to talk about the state of it, and then I'm going to talk about some potential projects that might be eligible expenditures for your consideration. So next slide, please. Awesome. So first I have to talk about what is equity? Equity requires us acknowledging that we don't all start in the same place, that there are historical injustices, and there are places that people are starting at a different spot in their life. And this statistic this data, I'm a data nerd in case anyone was wondering, shows access to healthcare. And this comes from a 2019 study from St. Anthony's Hospital along with a collaboration of hospitals where they found people reporting that their children have unmet health needs between 6% and 9.4% depending on the race or the ethnicity of the person. And with adults, we had people reporting 17.2% to 34.8% of unmet health needs, meaning they thought they needed to go to a doctor and they did not do so for one reason or another. And this was pre-pandemic, so we can imagine that during this pandemic, that's changed greatly. Next slide, please. So some recent investments at the city's put a very strong emphasis on health equity the last few years. As part of our Healthy St. Pete initiative, initiated by Dr. Kanika Tomlin, our deputy mayor in 2016, we have done a lot to look at health equity in the city. We're a citywide program, we have free fitness classes, we have free wellness classes. If anyone wants to know more about that, talk to me afterwards. But we have a lot going on there. We also have health and all policies. The city this fiscal year added a position for the health and all policies planner, whose job it is to essentially analyze all of our policies, programs, projects, plans, and look at that health and equity lens to see what can we do better. In addition, we're not alone. With healthcare, a lot of that is outside of the city government control a lot of the times. We have partnerships. So Florida Department of Health and the hospital system have done extensive community health assessments as required by law every 3 to 5 years, where they found some different health needs in the community. And I will say the 2018 and 2019 studies done separately both concluded that access to health care and particularly access to mental and behavioral health care were top priorities for the community according to their studies. And they always have to do an implementation plan. So when they've had implementation plans in the past to execute programs. Next slide, please. So some budgeted projects that we're currently working on. We still have the Healthy St. Pete division. It is now a division of the Parks and Recreation Department, actively working to promote health behavior education and partner with different organizations in the communities. We are still working on implementing our health and all policies approach to government decision making. We've also recently launched our Healthier Together certification. So if you are a business, a workplace of any sort, or a neighborhood association, you can now certify and self-evaluate what are you doing to better promote health in the community. We have our city's Healthy Food Access Assessment and Mapping. That's a recent project. The City Council just recently passed Food as a Human Right resolution. In response, the city is working on a food asset map, looking at where are assets in the community as they relate to the food system. Where are healthy food retailers? Where are organizations working in the food space so that we can better collaborate to promote healthy food for all? We also have the recently founded Food Policy Council. And then as I mentioned, we have our partners in the community actively working on programming all the time to improve both healthcare access and health outcomes in the community. So that's Florida Department of Health, the local hospitals, our federally qualified community health centers, St. Pete Free Clinic, all of these different organizations, I cannot name them all, are actively doing programming to try to promote health equity. As far as future projects in the community that are examples of eligible funding opportunities, a lot of it is enhancing what we're already doing, but also adding to what we're already doing. So for healthy food access, we can look at a long-term access plan to better improve resiliency in the community to access healthy food. What that could look like is a lot of different programs. It could look like a healthy corner store program. It could look like mobile vending. It could look like whatever we want it to look like, but to better promote access to healthy food in the community. We can look at immediate food assistance and nutrition, so that's addressing immediate food insecurity in the community, looking at our food pantries, looking at a mobile food pantry, looking at nutrition education at these locations are all potential possibilities. Digital inclusion, so as we learned from the COVID-19 pandemic, it is so important to have internet and have access to internet. And that's also important for economic and workforce development, to be able to use the internet to have a job. And so digital inclusion, digital literacy training, improving people's household access to internet is another potential project. Navigators, so healthcare, public benefit, and social service navigation. Navigators already exist in our community. They might connect you to the marketplace to buy health insurance. They might better connect you to WIC and SNAP food benefits. They might connect you to Medicaid and Medicare benefits. These navigators work so that people know what exists in the community and what they're eligible for to better connect them. They can be at community locations, they can be at community events. That's the responsibility of a navigator, so we could expand that work. Community health workers are very similar. They go out in the community and they do health behavior education. They might do a faith-based community nursing model. It might be a barbershop and beauty salon model. It's whatever works to meet people where they are to better promote health in their locations. Vaccination events and incentives, expanding the number of vaccination events we have, particularly in areas of the city where we do not have high uptake of vaccinations, even providing vaccine education to address the barriers, just answering people's questions. A lot of people still have questions about the vaccine, so answering those. Mobile healthcare and alternate locations, same thing, but not just for COVID-19 vaccinations, but really meeting people where they are. So mobile healthcare could be something like a mobile mammogram bus or a mobile dental service bus coming to your neighborhood or to a community location to provide those services. Healthy childhood environments is another potential project where you do a home visit model to try to promote better health behaviors in the home, especially with women who are pregnant, young children, or maybe some families that are having some adverse childhood experiences and trauma to help create a better home environment. Mental and behavioral health, as I mentioned, that's a high priority need that's been addressed that's been identified in the past. So there's a lot we could do to expand crisis intervention, mental health first aid trainings in the community so that anybody can know what to do when they experience a coworker or a friend or a family member in crisis and react that way. And even expanding long-term services is another option. And then finally, capital improvements in healthy buildings. So there's a lot you can do to a building to make it healthier, not just to mitigate COVID-19 transmission, but things like HVAC systems, ventilation, filtration. They don't just reduce COVID-19, they also can reduce flu symptoms and cold symptoms and other pandemics that may come in the future, or childhood asthma. So thinking about our public facilities, our rec centers, our libraries, our other facilities, and how can we improve them to make people have better health outcomes in them since they spend so much time in our beautiful facilities is another potential project. And I'm gonna pass it off to Tom Green, so thank you all for your time.
Good evening. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm the official timekeeper, and I'm gonna take a moment. Mayor Kreisman asked me to recognize that Chair Ed Montanari and Vice Chair Gina Driscoll are here. So thank you for being here, Chair and Vice Chair. And now I will start my clock. So good evening. I'm Tom Green, Assistant City Administrator, and I have the responsibility of chatting with you about affordable housing and support. And I'm pinch hitting for Rob Gertis, so the next time you see Rob, make sure you tell him I did a fantastic job representing him here tonight. As many of you will know, a year and a half ago or so, we embarked upon the For All, From All affordable housing program. And what I'd like to do is spend a couple of minutes this evening reorienting or reacclimating you to that plan, and then talk a little bit about what projects could be funded or how we would use these ARPA funds with respect to affordable housing. So there's a lot here on this text. Clearly, I don't expect you to be able to read that. I'm going to summarize that as quickly as possible. And I think you'll have copies of our slide deck on your tables when you're discussing it. But very simply put, the goal of For All, From All is to expand existing programs, to introduce new solutions, to take advantage of both public resources and private resources. The goal was to impact 7,000 households and improve the life of 19,000 of our neighbors. So those are kind of some of the high parameters. On the left side of this screen, like I said, I know you can't see it, I'm going to summarize it. There are the strategies we're going to pursue for income levels of 120% of area median income and below. And so the goal was to create or preserve 2,400 multifamily units, to create 200 non-subsidized workforce density bonus units, use city-owned land to encourage mixed income developments, create the legislative pathways to encourage construction of 300 accessory dwelling units. Those are kind of garage apartments or mother-in-law suites, or the things on alleyways. Enable the purchase of 500 single-family homes through grant programs for first-time home buyers. Provide 150 lots on which affordable home ownership opportunities could be developed, and enable 2,300 single-family homeowners to stay in their homes by simply fixing code violations and doing some improvements that will allow them to stay in their home for a longer term. On the right side of the screen, middle-income households. So those are folks' incomes of 120% of the area median income and above. And there are a couple of strategies we're employing through for that area, those income levels. Clearly, we want to increase the supply of market rate units through neighborhood traditional multifamily development zoning district. So it's a new category to increase density. Support the construction of those 300 accessory dwelling units. Include mixed income developments on city-owned land to increase supply of multifamily units. So now we've summarized that. Can we go to the next slide, please? And we'll talk about the from all. And this slide simply summarizes the various resources that we had identified as we started this plan of where the resources would come from. So as we go down this list, we have the federal dollars from the home program. We estimated about 1.5 million would come from that. We also estimated that state SHIP dollars, a grant program, would contribute about 2.5 million. Oh, I forgot to mention, the goal at the beginning of this was a $60 million potential investment from these various sources. So that was kind of the goal we set for the 10-year plan to be able to generate those units that we were looking for. And then as we go down through the city resources, the first one we identified was we estimated that $10 million in land value could be contributed to this initiative. So city-owned lands over time could be contributed for affordable housing purchases or affordable housing development. We also have the Penny for Pinellas. As you know, we have Penny was renewed a couple of years ago. We have a 10-year window. We've targeted $15 million of Penny for Pinellas resources to be used for land acquisition. We also have in the South St. Pete community redevelopment area identified about 8.5 million of resources that could advance housing initiatives within the South St. Pete CRA. Additionally, there's another legislative improvement for the floor area ratio bonus. We estimate that will generate about 2.5 million over the 10 years. And then the last item on this in this plan of 60 million, and a large portion of it was from a proposed linkage fee that we were exploring. And on the right side of this table or on this screen, there's a little summary of what's happened. Effectively, that is not going to come to fruition. There were some legislative actions taken in Tallahassee that preclude us from really implementing a linkage fee that would generate the type of resources. So that's not likely to happen. But administration working with our colleagues on city council, we did provide or create the capacity of $5 million within our economic stability fund to try to shore up that loss of $20 million in our 10-year plan. So we got $5 million of that through this credit facility with our economic stability fund that will allow us to make grants and to make the affordable housing programs work. And if we could go to the next slide, please. So this is a pipeline of affordable housing developments that are under construction or in permitting, or some have been completed. And I'll draw your attention to this bottom line, and you'll see that there are 691 units under construction. 401 of those units will be affordable. And as you move across, you'll see that 257 are at 60% AMI, the lowest kind of category. And then as you move across, 78 are at the 61 to 80% AMI. And then finally, there are 66 units at 120 AMI, or 81 to 120 AMI. So we're making progress. You know, this is evidence of progress. It's not where we want to be, where we're going to be, but there's tangible progress in place that we can all be proud of. And again, we thank our council members for their support in getting us there. If we could move to the next slide. Very quickly, this is a summary of current fiscal year, the resources that the city has at play for affordable housing. The first one is a transfer from the general fund to the housing CIP of $600,000. We have the penny for Pinellas that I mentioned for land acquisition. We're still on target to reach that $15 million target for the 15 years, or 10-year period, I'm sorry. South St. Pete CRA, I mentioned the credit facility, the housing community housing donation fund, and then we've got several grant funds. So you see, we have a significant amount of resources planned and budgeted this year. And finally, I'm running out of time, but can I go to the last slide, please? Very simply stated, you know, resources from the American Recovery Plan Act could be used to help make contributions to developments to make them happen. So that's kind of the update on where we are with the affordable housing, and I appreciate everybody's attention, and I took a little longer than I wanted, but Claude Tankersley, our Administrator of Public Works, is going to come up and speak next.
Thank you, Tom. Next slide, please. So I'm going to be relatively short, in part because Public Works, the infrastructure area, is the area that you're probably most likely familiar with, and so I don't really have to do too much explaining. If you go to the next slide, please. So infrastructure includes our utilities, such as water, drinking water, sewage, drainage, stormwater. Also includes things like streets and traffic signals, sidewalks, bridges, seawalls. Those are the kind of things that are included under infrastructure. And as you can see from this slide, in fiscal year 20, we spend tens of millions to $100 million a year, every single year, on all of that infrastructure, because that infrastructure is very expensive. And in order to maintain it, we have to spend a lot of money to maintain it. So you can see how in 1 year, we're spending $30 million in wastewater, $27 million in wastewater treatment. So as you can see, these are big numbers. Next slide, please. Just like last year, this year we're spending a lot of money. Fiscal year 21, we're spending tens of millions of dollars on our infrastructure. And luckily, one of the nice things about the infrastructure is that there's dedicated funds to do this work. Where some of the other things that we're talking about tonight, there are not dedicated funds. And so with those dedicated funds, we're actually able to do the work. Last slide, please. So what's eligible? If you're interested in having some of this $45 million go towards infrastructure, what kind of infrastructure projects are eligible for this money? And you can see here what they are is drinking water treatment and distribution, sewage system treatment and disposal, as well as stormwater systems that can help drain the streets and prevent your streets from flooding. So those are the areas under infrastructure that the $45 million that we're here to talk about today can be applied towards. So I told you I'd keep it simple. And now I'd like to introduce your public safety folks, our two chiefs. Come on up, chiefs.
Good evening, everyone. I'll make it real short. So next slide, please. So what the city has budgeted first is our body worn camera. Every officer that's wearing a uniform, he or she is wearing a body worn camera. Also the equipment that has to go with that, the recording of it, and also the people that actually make the recordings and redact information. Also, in-car, every marked police vehicle now has an in-car camera system. So when he or she's making a traffic stop, that traffic stop is recorded at all times. Our call program, as you know, you heard her talk about that. We're past our 100-day call stand for Community Assistant Life Liaison. And those are non-sworn police officers that are going to non-criminal call to help someone out that's in a medical crisis or any type of crisis that really does not need a police response. The next one is training for our officers. We want to continue to train officers in de-escalation training and also communication training. And our take-home vehicle, as our fleet ages out, we want to make sure we can replace those. Next slide, please. Our CAD is Computer Aid Dispatch and Record Management System. So you're aware of it. All the police departments here in Pinellas County, we all have our own record management system and computer aided dispatch system. We're going to try to put all those together so all the agencies can talk to each other. We've already talked about the take-home vehicles, and we're looking to replace our computers. Chief?
Well, good evening. This is our recent investments in the fire department. You'll see number one there, clean cab engines. Our engines, we're getting somewhere between 7 to 10 years of frontline service out of them, and then they go into a reserve status for 5 more years. The clean cab concept is, these are the first 3 that St. Pete has purchased. They're very important to the health and safety of the firefighters. The clean cab concept reduces the risk of cancer, which is rising in the fire service due to we don't fight ordinary fires anymore, ordinary combustible fires. Everything's man-made, synthetic, treated, and it poses a high risk. So this is a great concept and a great addition to our fleet. We've added a 3rd peak unit at the Fossil Park Station. We have 3 of those. One's at the Master Station, and one's at Station 3 on 5th Avenue, 31st Street South, and now we have the one at Fossil Park. Peak units run from 8 to 8. They're a 12-hour shift, and they help with the ever-growing EMS workload. The second set of bunker gear we purchased and our breathing apparatus are both, the breathing apparatus are just the time for new ones, but the second set of bunker gear also has to do with our cancer prevention. The city's been very proactive in trying to cut down the cancer risk, the incidence of cancer in firefighters. Second set of bunker gear allows the first set to be cleaned if they are exposed, and they still have a set to come to the next incident. So next slide, please. Our budgeted projects for the next year are 3 more engines. They will be clean cab. One will go to Station 4, which is our old Northeast Station, 1 to Lake McGorry Station, and 1 to the station on Shore Acres. Again, those are scheduled replacements, and they're kind of routine. Try to stagger them out. Fire engines have gotten to be very costly over the years. The next thing is land acquisition for Station 2. We currently have a what we call a satellite station. We're renting a piece of property out on the west end, and that is our Station 2 for now. We're looking for a permanent site and ultimately to build a permanent facility. Next slide.
So what are we looking for that's available to us is, first of all, itemization plan. And what that is, just for every really city building where these men and women have to work out of. You know, you want to make sure the first responders can respond to whether it's a fire or police call. The other ones are just sanitizing equipment, again, so we can put these in the building to make sure, again, that those men and women are able to come and respond to your calls when you call us.
Thank you, Chief and all of our presenters. Now we're going to break into the groups. You're already in your groups, so we're going to allow for that discussion to take place. At your tables, you will have one of our city staff people will be helping facilitate the discussion. All of us who were presenters tonight will be available to answer any questions that you might have. Additionally, we have some folks from our budget and finance team who might be able to help address eligibility questions. So feel free to raise your hand, call on us. We're happy to help facilitate any questions or answer any questions that you might have. But we're now almost 7 o'clock, and the deputy mayor said we had to have a hard stop at 7 to get this going. So we appreciate everybody being here, and we're very much looking forward to your feedback.